welcome to Technology Trends. I'm your host, Steve Naj, and our guest this evening is Lance Carter. And welcome back.
Well, it's been an interesting month since our last show.
Yes, you have a surprise for us. You discovered something 3 days ago in a creek bed.
Well, actually, I was just walking along, taking a walk on Friday night, and I was talking with a friend and telling her about the show we did, with the cave art in Spain and the mobile rock art that people carried around, and I was like trying to get her interested in this subject, and it was no, I'm an artist. I can't I can't listen to you. I said, well, I got an article. It's 50 pages. You can see the pictures. No, I can't read that. Well, you can watch our TV show. It's got all the video of everything. No, I don't want to watch that and hear about your caveman mentality. I'm going, But I looked down at the ground, and I saw this rock, and I said, wow, that's one of those kind of rocks that can be engraved upon. Mm-hmm. So I reached down and grabbed it and looked at it, and I said, it's engraved upon. And so I turned it over, and I said to my friend, look, an engraved rock. And she says, oh, well, it's probably just something I threw out there. I've been learning how to use a Dremel engraver on little stones and pebbles I find, so I just throw this stuff all over the place for people to pick up. And I go, wow. So I show it to her, and she says, oh, yeah, this is when I engrave with my Dremel engraver, my electric Dremel engraver. I threw it away about, thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So I'd like to show it to you, and
certainly.
It's I'll sort of hold it here for a second, and you can see possibly the really deep grooves right here, right here, right here, right here, and there is also on this side there's a semicircle and lines going out this way. And on different sides of it, there are pock marks or holes that are drilled into it somehow. Mm-hmm. And I started to look at them, and they correspond with major star constellations. And this turns out to be an instrument that can be used for. It's a star map, basically. So just this morning, I took a little walk around where I thought I might find one, mm-hmm. and I looked at, just walking around for 20 minutes, and I saw another one, or found something like it, the same rocky material, and I looked at it, and I said, well, there's not much in here. Then I looked closely, and I saw 4 grooves in this little alcove area. You see those grooves on there?
Oh, yes.
And so I asked the artist, are those made by, running in a stream? She says, no, those are engraved in there. And then so I looked at the other part looked in it really closely, and, I started to see, well, those look like legs. And then I handed it to the artist, and she looked closely, he says, there's a deer in 3D relief in that little alcove there. And then I asked somebody else, and they said, I see a deer. And they didn't hear each other, there's different things, different times. So essentially the way these things, I figure, are used is, this is a constellation, this little alcove area, and it's made the grooves. You find where the deer is in the sky, and you hold it up, and you put your finger over where you can see it up there. And this side right here has a surface that looks like it has some indentations and engraving marks, but it's covered in with concrete, some kind of concrete you can see there. Ah. Can you see lines on that side?
Oh, I can. Let's see.
Okay, so
could be the North Star.
On the back side here, it's engraved, and there's dots, So instead of just looking at it through the camera, if we start the show, there's close-ups of these. So as soon as you would like to get going.
Okay. You have some celestial artifacts for us. So the old, obviously cavemen didn't have Dremel tools.
We haven't found any yet that they left around, but you know, they could really make very sharp points with rocks. So unfortunately, this is really small, but
yes, I noticed that.
So here's the San Jose Bay Area with San Jose, and this is where I found it, and there was a picture there of the exact spot I found it. Here's a picture of the rock, and just a little bit of information. If you watch this show later on YouTube, you can slow it down. So there is a couple pictures of the rock that you can see, and looking at the rock from various angles, you can see notches and such, but the whitey substance appears to be concrete, and there's the engravings inside are filled with concrete, like that white substance you see there. That's concrete. On other parts of the surface is concrete, and on this other rock that I showed you, there's also little bits of concrete. So somehow this gravel must have been...
It could be sediment. Yeah.
Or sediment, I can't tell really. So I took that and I drew the dots out and I drew the lines out, as you can see. Just doing that took me all a Saturday. But then I projected and it landed right up there in the sky, almost right on the dots. So the thing is that it looks like part of the engraving was worn away, but you can see that sort of an outline there.
Now, it's the large star there, the brightest star?
Yeah, or it's the biggest dot. And the biggest dot was inside the biggest groove. So how do you pronounce that?
Rofanya.
Okay, so let's now talk about the cave paintings and the...
Those are quite interesting caves. They're about 8 kilometers of caves. And you can actually take a little electric train, you see there in the right-hand corner, on a 2-kilometer trip down to the lower level. There are roughly 4 kilometers of pathways and caves on top, and another 4 kilometers on the bottom. It's about 13,500 years old.
13,500, so that makes it what?
About, you mean BC? About
11 and a half BC.
Yeah.
So now these are finger flutings, and you see it on the left, the actual flutings, and if you change them into colors and project them directly over the sky, the patterns of stars seem to be outlined there. Now here's a cave ibex, cave 3 ibex, and a drawing of it. The drawings are sometimes better than the photos. As you can see, I project this picture with the black directly into the stars.
Well, that was pretty good, because you've got the 2 stars for the snout and 1 for the center of the eye.
Well, the thing is, though, it's popping over in different spots. So it's the design that's important, a design that's repeatable. And because of this particular technique, there's only going to be a certain number of designs that are going to be really possible, because there's, the artists will have to come up with a new design, and sometimes they'll have to twist their animals around. But you can see what's happening here is that the actual shape can be projected into various areas in the sky. And what we'll see is that this is repeated throughout their instances of cave art.
Oh, that's quite interesting. So they have the same shape, but it can represent different areas of the sky.
Right, but since this is a particular area, it's right up in the north, they're going to always see it if they're looking up towards the north, the meridian. And so, it's a herd of them, basically. If you can draw the shape right and then project them into an area, you can see more than one shape at the same time. Then you maybe give them names. Oh, there's the green one, there's the blue one, there's the magenta one. And so it's a trick of the eye, possibly, that allows people to see it this way. But I think it's a different type of consciousness, It's a primitive consciousness that allows people to see these things, multiple patterns within these ancient drawings. There's the cave rhino.
Woolly rhinoceros.
Oh, is that what it is? So I grabbed the actual picture and just projected it directly right up into the sky. I mean, I just dragged it over and it practically fit. So then I gave it some color, and then I dropped another one, and there was another one that fit right, it was right next to it. And so you have another representation of the rhino. And there they both are. And I says, well, if there's two of them, well, there's two, there's more. So
you think maybe this was a pre-linguistic culture? Or the
oh, it had to be, but I could hear them laughing all the way. I mean, this is like comic book humor, because it's all graphic.
Yeah. So it appears that there are, I'll say, a right brain dominant civilization where they have art and visualization, and they represent their cave art with the celestial vision.
Yeah, so that's it, exactly. But the thing was about this cave art, it's sort of like, how do you describe it, It's like, it's a part of consciousness that we don't use much anymore. Maybe artists do, intensely trained professional artists can really grasp that side of the brain and do stuff. But,
most normal people don't unless they sketch a little.
Right,
Yeah.
so I think it's something that is, to be able to see this, to see these patterns in the sky isn't something that you have to talk about.
Sure.
And so it must have been a tradition of visualization that was highly developed, and it's also spread throughout Europe, through Southern Europe, through Spain, France, and other areas. And so the indications are that there was a culture spreading this kind of way of thinking. And to my, when I was thinking about this, I says, who was doing this, I had this little impression of, the third eye vision of some cave women, stretching way back, kind of keeping the tradition alive while the men go out and hunt the woolly mammoths or something.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, and it's like they say the women are the ones that spread the genes way all over the place. The men were just hung out at home.
Well, it's possible this is pre-linguistic because our civilization is mostly left brain, language, speech, mathematics, and back in the old days, the good old days, it's the artistic side of the brain was dominant.
Well, look at this pattern here, these finger flutings that, but if you look up in the sky, you can find these parallel lines. And
it appears they're using the four fingers and not the thumb. Yeah.
Right, and some of these were made by children as old as 4-year-olds. There's studies on the shape of the fingers and hands, and on ceilings of some of these caves. They say a 4-year-old girl did these things a 4-year-old girl was able to see this pattern in the sky, was able to repeat it exactly in a cave far away from the sky. This takes a type of visual memorization that is way past what we could do. I mean, can we do this kind of stuff today? Can we visualize that way?
That would be difficult. We're too much on our iPads and our TV sets. And
We'll plug this into your iPad, huh?
Yeah, people then didn't have the distractions we do.
Yeah.
And the sky is probably the best TV set you'll ever come across.
Yeah, moving pictures. Well, since these animations of these, I mean, it's sort of like animation when you see multiple figures up in the sky, but the thing is that it's my opinion, and this might be borne out or not, that all of the cave paintings in Europe are celestial. And as far as I could tell, all art around the world, ancient art, is celestial. And we're going to go through a lot of it, but the thing is that for some reason, practicing this type of technology, being able to see things, see multiple patterns within the Milky Way and the layout of the sky, means that these people could see things and be able to use them in ways that we're not quite aware of yet. I'd like to know how they thought. I try to get into the minds of the creators of these art pieces when I'm deciphering them. But you know, you look at the sky, wow, there's a couple horses, and you follow those lines are lines between stars, and so you find a certain pattern, and that can be repeated. And so then you look out and say, well, does this line fit? Does this line fit? And so the thing is about this is that they have multiple ways of presenting this, and throughout the year and throughout the seasons, there's only going to be certain horses or rhinos or mammoths available for sight because of the rotation of the earth and the sky. So this is a full sky picture, not something they're going to see every day. So they might see one or possibly two of those horses. So you can see how these finger flutings, they're not some kind of elementary geometry lesson or, you know, doodlings. They're very fantastic representation of their environment. I
noticed that the tips line up with the bright stars.
Right. So the lower ones, though, are bear claws, so they didn't know how to do this art. The bears just didn't learn. They just hung around the caves and scratched on the walls.
So this is Nyo Cave in France?
Yeah, that's a famous picture with some bison. You see the arrows pointing up into it. Yeah, that's where you shoot it, but what else can you say about it? Oh, it fits right up into the sky, and those arrows are lines of stars pointing to bright stars, as you can see in this illustration, and the entire shape is based on connecting lines of bright stars within the area in which the picture is confined.
So do you think these are representations of a great hunt?
No, I think they're all kinds of stuff, but let's go on to the Dispilio tablet inscription found in Greece. It's just, I think, one of the oldest representation of writing, they think. But what was it? You see those symbols and engravings. So what I did was traced over the engravings and then projected it directly over the sky. And so here's a couple of the preliminary looks at it. So it looks like the Dispilio tablet was a star map. Now Glozelle, France, is
yeah, it's near Vichy, France.
So I started trying to project these, and so these you can sort of see the lines correspond with the actual things. This projection of stars is actually astronomical, so that's not actually naked eye stars, so I'm going to have to redo these. But here's the schist bracelets that basically are projections of the sky. They can do that. Then these clay seals are also projections of the sky. I don't know what they're trying to say, but say like these things, the bright eye on that thing is a bright red, ruby red star. And so you look at these and like the bright eye there is a bright star. And well, this one's a clay tablet, hard to see, but see that hole right there in the left? Mm-hmm. That's for sighting. What you do is you sight a star through there, and then you find the fawn in the sky. Now, I didn't find all of it for that one, but...
So you think this is a locator in case you get lost?
They're all... This is these rocks are locators. You can just pick them up, find the constellation, and point it towards the sky, and you're home, you know. So this one fits the hand, just the thumb, just right. So essentially, you can just aim these things. You're looking up into the sky, and you're putting. See, you can identify
maybe
this
the brightest
little
star
right here. You put your thumb over there. You turn the rock at an angle. You see the engraving on that side. The shape of the rock from the view that you have now indicates an outline in the sky of rocks, I mean of stars, mm-hmm. that so it basically the shape is circled with the shape of the rock. So the shape of the rock becomes part of the mm-hmm. actual constellation, if we can call them constellations. Now this particular stone fits directly into the palm. It can be, and then what you do, if you see here, I don't know if you can see all the grooves, but these grooves that we already mm-hmm. examined, they basically, you can see where they are in the sky. You can find Lyra down here at this point, mm-hmm. and so all you do is find Lyra right there. You line up those lines of stars, you know where north is, and you figure like it's, you know, it's 8 or 9 in the evening, and then the next day at 8 or 9 in the evening, they're going to be lined up there the same. Mm-hmm. So then you say, well, I want to go, you know, 3 miles west or east or whatever, and then you the next night at the same time, you look up, you align it up, and you say, okay, it's that way to get back. And you can just take these little pebbles and align where you are, do a kind of dead reckoning just by using these unrecognizable pebbles. I mean, people stand on them every day. They throw them into concrete to make, you know, fire pits and everything out. And they're under feet. They're in the mm-hmm. creeks. They're all over the Bay Area, as far as I can see. I don't know, but if this culture, it's not just San Jose. It's all over the Bay Area. It's Ohlone, but these things look much aged and eroded to such a point that I did star charts for, say, 4,000 years ago, and they didn't fit right. So I'm going to have to find out when it was. They could have been 10,000 years ago.
So it's your theory these are prehistoric GPS? In case you're off hunting, you point this at Canopus or Sirius, and you can judge by the shape of the constellation what area you're in.
Well, not quite, because these are all, the inscriptions are all of very northern constellations, right at the North Pole. And so those are the only real important constellations for people that need to find north. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to be looking at southern stars or zodiacal stars or constellations on the ecliptic. That came way later, thousands and thousands of years later in our Western world, but I don't know if, you know, it was also used by the Mayans and other cultures, but we'll have to do that show another time with all the calendars and everything, but we better get going.
Okay. back to the screen.
Okay, where is this? Oh, reindeer. And, okay, so...
A celestial reindeer, right? Ah.
Yeah, here's another schist ring. It may not be easy to see all these things, but the bright stars are much brighter than the little lines of stars, and you can probably not see them with this projection, but if you were to look at them very closely, you could. Here's another projection of letters as they would be. So this is basically a study showing how they might be projected directly out. So you can see they have various patterns in this that they're imitating, and the patterns that they imitate are thought to be words, but I would possibly have to disagree. They could just be all astronomical symbols. Now the Phaistos disk is another example of some all kinds of symbols that are undeciphered and possibly undecipherable. You can't, is from my opinion, you can't make words out of this. This is a star chart straight out. You can find it directly in the sky. I've done other studies on this, and you can see it much better in those, but I only had this today. And so there's A and B sides to the Phaistos disk, and they line up in a particular manner, but they don't line up exactly with each other. So they were made at different times or based on different areas. So here's a superimposition of both of them, their graphics. And now here's one over an ancient clay tablet that was found. So those Phaistos disks just are like spin around in some of those things. Here's a Sumerian inscription seen in the sky. Here's some Sumerian star charts. They're saying, well, look at them. You see stars, they're star charts, but basically they're written in the stars. This is the way you see the sky. It isn't something just, you know, a few letters talking about it. This is the actual representation of the sky as the Sumerians saw it. And we don't say, well, lines and, you know, things like that. What do they mean? Well, they had meaning, but we may not know exactly all the stuff, but we can see how they are basically basing their writing in and around this type of system, so they can see and write exactly what they see in the sky. So the cuneiform also is basically all written in the same way, in the same place, in the sky. So you just, it's basically take a new page of paper and they just go to the same place in the sky and draw these things over and over, you know, page after page, tablet after tablet, culture after culture that used the cuneiform format. Now you can find these types of inscription forms in various forms, the Persian forms and other forms. So here's a little bit less opacity, and here's a, now I've introduced in magenta the Rosetta Stone Egyptian, and then here's an overlay that shows a lot of Babylonian and class 1. And
so you actually have a computer program that retrogrades the alignment of the stars to back 15,000 to 20,000
right,
years.
it's so great. All this software is free on the internet.
Oh, that's marvelous.
And so let's go to the code of Hammurabi.
Yeah.
So this is just a short little detail. You can see this is really lined up. The lines are lines of stars. The divisions and the sections are seen up there. The Rosetta Stone, now it's that trilingual stone they found, and here's a picture of it, and a couple pictures of it. Yeah, it looks different from different angles and all. But I took the scripts and superimposed them directly in the sky. The magenta is the Egyptian, the green is the Greek, and the gray is the Demotic. And interesting, Demotic is that it follows a much different type of pattern. The Greek is all lined up in a very particular manner that imitates other forms, but it looks like the Demotic comes from a different style of writing that is seen its evolution in other forms. Here it is seen with the coordinates, and here is some, I believe, a Astrakhan Demotic, and here is the Rosetta Stone directly over a Sumerian star chart. So essentially you can see that the alignment of the characters within the lines are practically similar. So that would indicate that their time period and age were aligned on such, and they had agreement on which was the vertical and how to line up. So as you can see, the cuneiform and the Greek also line up. And then taking just an example of the Demotic Astrakhan, it's sort of a pottery shard, but I didn't get all the examples, original examples. And so here's Hieratic and pseudo-hieroglyphic, which is also based on a similar star pattern, star patterns, but the pseudo-hieroglyphic, as you can see with two examples in magenta and green, can be written in a much freer way, meaning more area of the sky and at a different angle. And hieratic also is written differently. And so we see two examples of the hieratic, and they are also parallel, so you see how close they, but then I threw in some Iberian script, and that seemed very parallel with it. We'll see this one again.
Do you think it's possible that the ancient alphabets were actually derived from connecting star dots?
That's the whole theory. It's the theory. That was our show we did last year, but it brings it back to a better way of seeing it, because what I found, I did all this research and went through all the these ancient inscriptions, and then I found that they did inscriptions, in Israel and the Near East in a particular manner, where they were spread out like the Glozell inscriptions. They like you'd find an A or something, they'd be in different spots, but as you notice all the scripts you've just seen, they're all lined up. Mm-hmm. So the Hebrew wasn't lined up until they went to Babylon, and basically I think, my theory is that they taught them how to write in lines, but they had to do it in a very micro way, because the way they were writing, in Canaan was in using very large constellations, but you can't write very much with big letters, and so
unless you have an oxide somewhere.
Well, yeah, big oxide. So the thing about it is that to align these, to put the Bible or any kind of writing into a readable fashion that we use, to read text, it had to be aligned in certain lines of stars, and it just so happens that the Babylonian cuneiform is in a parallel lines. And when I looked at it, the Hebrew Bible and Book of War and all the Qumran, Dead Sea Scrolls are all within in that, but for some reason they're wrote between the lines. I guess out of some respect for the who taught them it. So they wrote everything parallel, but you can read it all. It's all on the next segment down, the next line of stars down. And these lines of stars are basically caused by the formation of the Milky Way. The Milky Way is basically flat, but there's spirals out of stars, and so they just happen to align in the sky on certain planes and look like they're in lines.
That's quite interesting. So we come back to the screen and see.
Let's go ahead. Oh, early Arabic is interesting. That is in line. Those are lines. And you look at the Blue Quran Arabic, it's, I think it's a form of Kufic Arabic, very stylized. It's sort of like the perfection of this art form. Now that you can see it, see how these they all line up in the sky. Tabula
Capuana. Huh.
Okay, so this is another famous inscription.
Yeah, it's in the Berlin Museum. That's Etruscan.
Looks sort of hard to read, huh?
Yeah. I can't tell where one letter begins.
So I took the, you know, the copy of it and then projected it, and we sort of lost it. But here's, can you pronounce that one?
Behistun.
Okay, it's a very famous Persian inscription, you'll see. And it happens to...
Oh, that's nicely done. Parallel lines, the same width.
Mm-hmm. Now they just happen to line up in the sky as well.
Hmm. Oh.
Now I'm projecting Sumerian, and so you can see. I think it's an indication of the age, because different peoples seem to project these differently. So I don't know, is the precession of the equinox, the years, you know, when they were watching it in the sky. There's the Hebrew Bible written in the sky. Here's a better look at it. So I tested it, not every single page, but the Bible is written in the sky. There's the Aleppo Bible, the Leningrad Codex. So now here's the Cyrus cylinder, which is basically what you do is roll it over wet clay, and you get something like that. But that's been, you know, stylized and fixed, so it looked good. And there it is, directly in the sky. You can take a cylinder, and basically the inscription fits over the sky, again showing the angle difference. How did that get there? Okay, there's the Aleppo Codex that I told you about. So there's a page from Ezekiel lined right up in the sky. Here's some Gezer Proto-Hebrew. Can't see it as well because the bright stars are kind of blurring out that thing, so I'll have to redo some of these. There's a whole selection I haven't done. So Celestial Hebrew Bowl inscription, you can't see it, but I looked very closely, and there's lines of stars within this whole Star of David. It's all in the sky. What you see in the ancient graphics is what you see in the sky. And here's a decorative piece projected over the Star of David, the same area. They used the same area of the sky, and many of these cultures did. And as the progression through Etruscan and other forms, so
That's an 8-pointed star. Okay.
Here's the Leningrad Codex that a real short detail. So there's a close-up what I showed of the whole sky. So if you look real closely at it, that's what it looks like, and that's what the Hebrew symbolism is all about. It's celestial.
Yeah, the Tanakh is equivalent to the Old Testament, or the Christian Old Testament.
Yeah, that's what we call it. Here's the Iberian script again, but here's what it looks like on clay, and that's what it looks like in the sky. So basically, you couldn't say things unless you said them in the sky. It wasn't permitted, so you needed scribes. And so if you believed in this, and and you convince the king, you'd have all kinds of scribes working for you, doing all this stuff, writing everything out in the sky. And the thing about it is once you can see it in the sky, every time you see it in the sky, and you can read maybe hundreds of pages just by looking and memorizing the shape forms. The yogis, the India forms, is basically, they were using the same techniques. They were just basically using the animals in their area, but the Indus Valley culture focused a lot on the yoga positioning and such, what I tried to show. Okay, the Pickens spectrograph, South Carolina, there's a whole bunch of them, but I just chose this particular one. I laid it out in the sky. I saw something there. Add a little color. Remove the rock. And so basically, it's an inscription, but it's also a celestial inscription. So somewhere out there, people are making their own petroglyphic inscriptions, but they, you know, the vandalizing rocks, that's what they're vandalizing, star charts and heritage and culture and history. The Chinese scapula, here's the Chinese added with the Greek and the Egyptian, and here's Chinese. This is one of the oldest stones found with an engraving on it. And well, what does those engravings mean? Well, you start to look at them in the sky. It's sort of hard to see with the way I did this particular chart, but you can see these forms, and I'll have to redo that. Now, some Pictish. Now, see those lines again that you saw in the French caves? Now, here's a Celtic coin, and it's got shapes that are identifiable to me. I see them in the sky. I don't know if you can see them.
Now, some of them line up very well, yeah. Some take a little imagination.
I think, you know, it's like they didn't have, you know, really the best star charts, but they were making the best they could. And so that looked like an angel, but had a beard. Angels don't have beards. Here's a Roman.
Unless they're like extraterrestrials.
Oh, well, let's not talk about that. Now, all these weirdo Dresden Mayan codex and everything, they're all seen in the sky. Every single bit of it I could find that I've looked at. And it's not hard to find. The entire mythology is based on celestial representations. You can see the detail. The glyphs, inscriptions, have to basically line up in a particular manner in the sky. So it's something that was practiced around the world. The Mayans knew how to do it. You know, and you start to say, well, that's an end of time inscription. Well, yeah, but it's also in the sky. You're going to get scared of that too. And so here we got a calendar, long count calendar in the sky. I've got a lot more like this stuff. The detail isn't exactly clear, but with the closer examination, you can see some of that. The figures right now with the Mayan glyphs. So here's another look at the Mayan long count from another. So essentially, you can just put these things directly in space, seeing the line painting, the line drawings converted to color. And here's the Palenque tablet is seen in the sky. And if you look very closely, every single line, there's a line of stars. Here's a sort of a small version of the Aztec calendar as it aligns up with that. Here's celestial petroglyphs. I did some study of petroglyphs around the world. Here's one somebody found in Arizona at an undisclosed location. They say they're Chinese, so I'll go with that. But they could be anything, really. You add the color. And then you remove the rock. And what do you get? You get a design in the sky. It may say something in Chinese or something like that, but it may just be an astronomical symbol. And so I can't tell. It's, you know, it's going to take some thought.
I'm not sure if it is Chinese, but it's
Decorative.
yeah. Well, it is square, like the Chinese language and alphabet.
Well, they don't have an alphabet, but they have plenty of characters.
I mean, yeah, characters.
So we're going to add another form that they found. I just directly took this and just, this glyph, it's sort of hard to see, but I projected it up. And here's another glyph. So essentially, whoever drew these glyphs in this area were pinpointing directly on a particular position in the sky. Now here's some Australian petroglyphs, and basically their shape formats. This one's sort of hard to see when they're so weathered, but if you look closely, those dots line up with stars. The sun face isn't real clear, but looking again closely, you'll see lines of stars. Everybody's seen a picture of this, these ghostly faces.
Yeah, those are interesting. You don't think they came from the stars, do you?
No, but look at it. You can see them directly in the sky. This isn't some scary spirits or something. This is constellations. They may have had associations, you know, with something, you know, your ET guy, but otherwise, you can find them. They're, you know, this kind of rock art is celestial. And here's some hieroglyphics. Probably can't see them. They found some hieroglyphics in Australia. They happen to be celestial as well. Here's a Bay Area petroglyph, big petroglyph canyon. It's sort of hard to see some of these things without really looking at very closely. I've tried to project some of that there.
Hmm. Are these nearby?
Yeah, well, they're in the U.S.
Oh.
I've got to redo these because the star map, it doesn't really help as much as it could. I mean, you can see the stars at the major points, but not necessarily the other contrast with the lesser magnitude stars that provide the detail of the lines.
What state are these in?
Pretty decayed, I think. Weathered. Please help me.
Like, where's Granite Mountain?
You know, I've forgotten. I just got these pictures off the internet, and most of them were unattributed. But so you see, if you add color, the color outlines lines of stars.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you see geometrical forms, the geometrical forms are actually lines of stars. Shapes. And they don't necessarily have to be seen as in the line that you see them on the rock, because as a celestial object, they rotate in the sky. And so this particular pattern is going to be turning in the sky, and depending on how far from north it is going to be going at a particular type of rate and motion, seen at particular times of years, have associations with possibly seasons or times. If you look closely, real closely at this, you can see each one of those lines has lines of stars in it.
Yeah, they look like rays, and each ray ends in a bright star.
Right, and so those suns are actually circles of stars. And look at the bright star in the eye, and the bright star on the feet is noticeable parts. I think that dot, those two dots in that previous drawing were those two bright stars that they were right next to. And here's a type of drawing. These aren't real evident unless you look real close. I mean, I didn't provide enough detail on these to see exactly, but you can see the rough forms are not random. You can see this one in particular. I call it Goldstein after the photographer. And here's, I forget where this one is. This is a relief. Mm-hmm. And here's Mesa Verde. That's a complicated one. But it sure sorts itself out in the sky.
Yeah, it's more explainable than trying to make a language or a sentence out of it. It may be just a description of the celestial observation.
Yeah, here's a few examples. I couldn't provide all the originals. And here's some, okay, what, if you were trying to figure out, say, well, what does that represent? Some snake? Well, it's a line of stars in the sky. That's what it is. Maybe you call it a snake if you like. This one is got more detail of the stars are shown. Here's the spider web, painted rock inscription. If you were to look really close at this, you'd see the lines of stars. Lines of stars also in these red lines. And so this one is a little hard to see, but it's sort of a face, it looks like. I'm not sure. This one's getting hard to see, but these are some of my early attempts at these petroglyphs. The Texas petroglyphs are in little gullies, and so they use an overhead camera to see what they are. And remember I told you about the observatorium? We need a place where we can see all these, because we're looking at them flat, and people are seeing them on a flat screen. It's not like see them as they should be seen, like three-dimensionally in the sky. And so if we had a place, it's better than a planetarium, because it's you'd be able to see where the actual picture of the was in the sky. You could bring 3D animations to this. You could have multiple projections. I'm just right now starting out with the way of doing the animation of these things, as you can see. And if we could get some, I mean, it's going to take millions to be able to get the equipment, the graphical equipment, the planetarium equipment, the projection equipment. It's something that would be huge, but I mean, how else are you going to get around to understanding ancient art, ancient people?
You could rent a planetarium.
But they can't project what we've seen. And they can't project the stars. It's a different way of looking at it, because today we look at dots. We look at stars as dots, we connect them as lines. They saw them as forms of light, as clusters of stars, as shapes. And so it's a different type of technology. I've worked in a planetarium. It's like dots in a, that project light directly out. And so it's not the kind of technology. It needs to be much more advanced to be able to do this. Oh, let's go back to the portable pebble. Here's another, well, looking at it again, you can sort of, but these things are, I believe, I found two of them in 3 days laying on the ground. One of them in near a parking lot with all kinds of broken debris and glass and pebbles. The other one you know, basically in a sewer stream with shopping carts and, you know, tents all over the place. The homeless tell me to get out of there. And, you know, it's like, this is, you know, I looked at thousands of these slimy pebbles in these, you know, ponds and stuff, but look at these.
You'd think the homeless would just dig a hole and poop in it instead of pooping directly in a stream.
Well, they don't do that, but I mean, it's the whole area, our whole Bay Area is a cultural heritage site. The streams and rivers are some of the most preserved areas that would have these types of artifacts. People, if you're going to look for them, they're small. You're not going to see what everybody else thinks is art. These things are miniature. I couldn't see them when I picked them up, the second pebble. I couldn't see because it's so small. You'll need probably a microscope to see some of these engravings. Some of this artwork is similar to the Glozell. Some of it is just basically, who can tell? It might be like other Indian art. It might be something that was imported from Europe, and I can't tell. More examples have to be found. But before you go and throw up a parking lot or a ball field, get out a pick and shovel before you get out your bulldozer, you know? Because these kind of objects are underfoot. They're getting thrown into gravel, thrown into walls, disappearing, crushed, buried, and destroyed. And these are the heritage. And if we're living here, it's our heritage too. We've got to protect it for you know, they put it there, they used it. And these kind of pebbles aren't something they could hold on to. I mean, if they're mobile, they're moving from one site to the other. And they couldn't hold, maybe could hold a few pebbles in a sack or in their hand. They couldn't be running all over. This kind of little pebble fits in the hand. You can carry this with you. You can do your alignments with these small kinds of pebbles, and it's something that people all over the Bay Area and probably farther could find these rocks. They can't be seen with the naked eye. You have to use maybe your right brain eye or something like that. You know, this is graphics on a level that we're not used to. This is a different form of celestial art. This is a different form of art, basically. It's utilitarian, which is the difference between cave art. You can take this with you when you go. You can use it every day and every night.
Well, for more information from our guests, you may contact Lance Carter at lancecarter.com. You may also write to us here at the studio at Technology Trends, P.O. Box 487, Mountain View, California, 94042. Let us know what type of shows you like, and we'll respond to you. So thanks for coming again, and see you again next time. This is Steve Naj, signing off for Technology Trends.